Hey yo, welcome to NCB Live. We haven't done this in about a minute. Once again, it's me, Derek Hernandez, joined by my co-host, Tate Vobach.
What's going on?
Actually, a lot has changed since we last did this show. I looked it up. We haven't done an NCB Live since December of 2013. Just to give you an idea of what has happened since then, LeBron was still on the Heat. The BCS still existed. I was still in my 20s, and Tate had yet to have the whole ball and chain around his ankle.
Yep, it's real.
Well, congrats, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Anything changed in your life since then, or is it just the same old same?
Since December of 2013, a lot has changed, actually. Me and myself and Johnny Manziel were still in college. The Kansas City Royals hadn't been to the playoffs in 29 years. And most importantly, you know who held the record for the most rushing yards in a single college football game? It was LaDainian Tomlinson. It wasn't Melvin Gordon yet. So that's what's happened in the past 11 months.
Thanks for reminding me of that, by the way.
Yeah, no problem. I had to throw it in. You know, I just had to do it.
He did that in 3 freaking quarters.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyways, well, since you got me with that, I'm going to get you with something here, too. Did you happen to watch that Kansas game last night?
Of course I did.
And what are your thoughts on that absolute beatdown?
Man, so I'm watching the game, and in the midst of the game, I really wasn't too upset because for multiple reasons. You know, it's early, it's November, the Final Four is 5 months away, and I was just so entertained and impressed in a college basketball aspect at what Kentucky was doing. I did not think the platoon system would work out. Clearly it did. The length and size that Kentucky has is literally incredible. I mean, you know, I'm watching Frank Mason get a steal for KU, and he starts a fast break, and while he's running down the court with the ball, I'm thinking to myself, if I was in this situation, I would literally have no idea what to do because you have to take advantage of the fast break, but you know that you got Alex Poitras and Willie Cauley-Stein that are probably just going to swat your stuff when you go up with it. So what are you supposed to do? And Kentucky just had such an advantage, and I mean, to be fair to KU, they match up terribly with Kentucky. They don't have any size this year. Perry Ellis is their tallest player at 6'9", maybe. Cliff Alexander looked like a child. So I don't know. I'm trying to talk myself off the ledge today because I think KU is going to be good. I don't think they're going to be you know, like they were in 2008 or in 2011 where they should have won the title. But I think they're going to be good. I think they're going to win another Big 12 title. But Kentucky, man, that was just unbelievable.
It's pretty crazy. And you brought up their length, and I think there was a stat that popped up on the screen yesterday was I think they had 8 players over 6'6", 4 players over 6'8", and 2 over 6'10".
Yeah. It's
insane. And I like what you said yesterday in our text conversation. You call them the Monstars.
Yeah, that's pretty much what they are.
That's exactly what they are. And I have to ask you this. Is KU that bad, or is Kentucky that good, or is it just a one-game thing? It's an aberration.
Like I said, I think KU matches up terribly with Kentucky. They don't have any size. Kentucky has. That's what they have. I think Kentucky is really, really good. I don't think KU played good. I think they played terrible, actually. They didn't have any assists. You know, 3 of 23 in the second half. That's obviously not going to cut it. They just didn't do anything good other than that last, 2 to 3 minutes in the first half where Kelly Oubre got hot and made a couple shots. There's not one thing you can look at that KU did well. They were in the game for about the first 5 minutes and then the last 2 to 3 minutes of the first half. Other than that, it was a complete mismatch. So I think Kentucky's really good. I don't think KU is the 5th best team in the country. I think they're somewhere around 10. But again, it's still so early in the season. It's so hard to tell which teams will be there in March and in early April. And KU always gets better as the year goes on. Bill Self, he works wonders. He's going to have this team, playing their best ball at the end of February, like they typically do. Hopefully, their best player doesn't get hurt like what happened last year. Hopefully, they can catch some breaks and potentially make another run to a Final Four. Hopefully, they return to Indianapolis. But the bad thing is that I think Kentucky will be there waiting for them. I was texting with one of my buddies yesterday. He goes, "Man, I would take KU being a 5 seed as long as they were on the other side of the bracket as Kentucky."
It's pretty scary what they bring, and it's crazy. One of the stats I was most impressed with yesterday was Kentucky, rolled, but they only had two guys in double figures, and that just tells you. I mean, when you have 9 McDonald's All-Americans on your team, you can roll in waves, and you don't need a guy to score 20 for you. And I was really impressed with that on top of their length.
Mm.
I mean, you kind of mentioned, the hype around this game, and I think before the show we were talking about people were saying this Kentucky team could probably beat the Sixers in the NBA. I'm not one to just take that much stock in one game. One of the examples I wanted to use was, when Kenny Trill was introduced to the world, when A&M just straight up murdered South Carolina in college football this year. Everybody went off the deep end with that. That led into some major hype, and teams were picking up wins against South Carolina when they weren't that good to begin with. And I think we just need to slow our roll a little bit here with Kentucky. I mean, I think they're going to be pretty dang good. They're not going to fall off like A&M or South Carolina did, and KU is not going to be a South Carolina and just fall off the face of the map. Bill Self is just too good. So we just need to slow our roll on that hype there. But what are your thoughts on all this talk about Kentucky being able to beat the 76ers?
Yeah, first off, I'll talk about the hype. That's actually a really good comparison. I hadn't thought about that, and I think even myself during the game got caught up in the hype. I think Kentucky's going to be favored in every single game they play this year, obviously. They should go undefeated in the SEC because the SEC is really down. I don't think they're going to go 40-0 or anything like that. They're going to have a bad game somewhere. They have to go to Louisville. They play Texas. They play North Carolina. They still got some tough games. Regarding them beating Philadelphia, there's not a chance. There's no way. I mean, Philadelphia almost beat Chicago. They almost won in Houston. They're really bad, but they still have guys that if you put them on a college team right now, they would be incredible. I mean, they got Jason Richardson, Michael Carter-Williams, Brandon Davies was really good at BYU, Jeremy Grant was good at Syracuse last year, Luke Richard-Mbah-a-Moute was one of UCLA's best players when they went to 3 straight Final Fours, KJ McDaniels. They have good players that would be some of the best players in college right now. I mean, just think about Michael Carter-Williams, KJ McDaniels, I'm pretty sure Jeremy Grant, Luke Richard-Mbah-a-Moute, those were all first-round picks. And Kentucky's going to have a lot of first-round picks, but the guys in Philadelphia have that experience in the NBA. They know how quick the game is. They know how everything works. They're smarter than the guys at Kentucky. I don't know. I just don't think that Kentucky would stand a chance against the 76ers. If they played, I would take Philadelphia by 25-30.
And the one name you didn't mention is Nerlens Noel. He'd probably
be starting. And Joel Embiid. They're both hurt.
Yeah. And I think people fail to realize there's a thing called grown man strength. And these guys are doing this for a living, and these college kids aren't fully developed yet. That's going to be a major factor in it. These guys are paid to work out all day long. I don't even think I hate when these comparisons come about. Alabama, people used to say that about an NFL team. Alabama could knock off an NFL team. I think it's just silly. I think
it's even worse in the NFL because there's more guys.
Good point.
You don't think Kentucky would stand a chance either?
Oh no. Like you said, I mean, the guys that are getting drafted in the top of the first round are guys that were dominating in college. So you're getting these guys, and the Sixers have been in the top part of the draft here for a while, even though they're drafting guys that don't play that season. I mean, these guys are pretty talented, and the guys that they're pulling, Jason Richardson, for example, he's like 40 years old, but I'm pretty sure he could, post up Harrison down low.
Right, exactly. I mean, yeah, he is almost 40, but still, if he was on Kentucky, he would be starting. You know what I mean? He would be their best player by far. So I just think people would get caught up in seeing Philadelphia lose, losing 90-35 or whatever it was to Dallas, and then. But, I mean, you got to keep in mind, like I said, they almost beat Chicago and they almost beat Houston. So are we going to say that Kentucky could almost beat Chicago with Derrick Rose and they could almost beat Houston with James Harden and Dwight Howard? No, there's not a chance.
Exactly. I just think the whole talk is silly to begin with.
I agree.
On to more of a non-silly topic here. Kentucky looked pretty good. KU's going to be fine here down the line. I guess who do you see as the top handful of teams that are going to be contending in March?
I'm a lot like everyone else, to be honest. Before the season, I said Arizona would be my pick to cut down the nets. After last night, I gotta say Kentucky. But regarding Arizona, they lose Aaron Gordon from last year, But they got Rondé Hollis-Jefferson, who I really like. I think he's extremely smooth, left-handed player. He's going to be playing in the NBA probably next year. So I really like him. The freshman Stanley Johnson, I think he's going to be incredible. And then, people take for granted point guard play. McConnell's a good point guard, and then Gabe York comes off the bench. He might even start a few games. Caleb Tarczewski down low. So they got some guys that I think potentially, if they, grow like I think they will under Sean Miller, I think they got a chance to definitely make it to Indianapolis and cut down the nets. But again, like I was saying, they're just going to run into Kentucky, and who knows what's going to happen there. I like Duke. Jahlil Okafor is good. That's a team that I really like to see Kentucky play because Duke has size. Not as much as Kentucky, but they have size where they could match up with definitely one of Kentucky's lineups. Wisconsin, Frank Kaminsky is going to be good. I'm big on North Carolina. I think Marcus Page has the potential to be the player of the year. I think Kansas will win the Big 12 again. Texas will be good. Wichita State, Ron Baker is going to be really good. But definitely my top two teams, in my opinion, I'd say Kentucky and Arizona.
I'm in total agreement there, and I was looking at SB Nation's top 100 college basketball players, and it's pretty much half of it is Kentucky and Arizona. And I liked what I saw with Kentucky yesterday. I just think Arizona is more constructed as a team with complementary parts.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes any sense. I mean, Kentucky's just
you're
going to put them all out there. I just like Arizona's, the way they're constructed just seems more of like a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, the only problem with Arizona is they're going to struggle to score because they lost Nick Johnson from last year, and he was one of their main guys that could create his own shot and shoot from the perimeter. And they don't have him anymore, so it's going to be interesting to see if they're going to be able to score enough points to win games. But their defense is going to be incredible, and as long as honestly, if they can score 65 to 70 points a game, I would like them to win a lot of their games.
Oh yeah, definitely. And there's one team that I think a lot of people are I don't want to say hyping because I think they deserve the hype, is Wisconsin. It's kind of curious if you look at the end of the year last year before the tournament. They lost to Northwestern. They lost 3 games at home towards the end of the year. They finished, right above Nebraska, and it's not like Wisconsin was just rolling through the Big Ten last year. I think they're going to be, a team that's going to be heard in March, but I'm not totally sold on them just dominating the Big Ten. The Big Ten is no slouch, and I just don't see them going through and dominating their schedule like everybody else is saying.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think people are just kind of I don't want to use the word hype either, but everyone remembers what they saw in March last year and how they knocked Arizona off in the Elite Eight, made it to the Final Four, and almost beat Kentucky. They returned Sam Decker. They returned Frank Kaminsky. They're going to be good. I think they'll win the Big Ten. But, yeah, I don't think they're going to roll through the Big Ten because I think the Big Ten's pretty good this year. You got Michigan, Michigan State, Nebraska. Tron Petaway might win Player of the Year in the Big Ten. So they're definitely not going to roll through it. I think they'll probably win or lose 3 or 4 games, maybe 5 in the Big Ten. But, yeah, I agree with you. I think Wisconsin. People are a little quick on them. I wouldn't say that they're the best team in the country or anything. I'd like to see them play a little bit, see how they look compared to when they were hot at the end of the year. At the end of the year last year.
Definitely. Is there any? I guess in terms of players, we talked about teams here. Are there any players that you're most looking forward to, or you think are just going to dominate this year?
Dominate? Not really. I will say, looking at that SB Nation top 100 players list, Wayne Selden for KU is way overrated. He's at 16. He should be in the 50s, in my opinion. Players I like that I'm intrigued to see. Stanley Johnson, I mentioned him. Montrezl Harrell, man, I watched him against Minnesota. That dude that guy has grown man strength. He's a monster. I'm going to be intrigued to see him against Kentucky. And then one player that I forgot to mention for Arizona is Brandon Ashley. He was hurt last year. I believe it was a broken leg, and he returns. I'm definitely excited to see him. Justice Winslow is another player that I watched a little bit of last night. He's really good. My favorite player this year in college basketball, it pains me to say this because he wears Carolina blue, is Marcus Page. I like him a lot. I just like watching his game. I'm really excited to watch him again this year as well.
Okay, great. There's one name that I see, and I'm looking at that top 100 list as well, and I see Karis LeVert there, and everybody's predicting him to make a big jump this season. I think a lot of that's based on, Beeline pulling a Trey Burke out of nowhere and Stauskas all of a sudden becoming a Player of the Year candidate. Are you sold on a guy like Karis LeVert?
I'm kind of like you are. I expect him to make a leap for sure, but I don't want to pull the trigger too soon because living up to Trey Burke and Nick Stauskas' jump, that's a pretty big thing to live up to because Nick Stauskas was one of the best players in college basketball last season. So I think Karis LeVert will be good, but he's definitely going to be the best player on Michigan with Spike Albrecht and some other guys. But, yeah, I don't want to say he's going to be the ninth best player in the country. That's where SB Nation has him, and I don't know if I'd believe that much.
No, I don't even remember him. Nebraska played Michigan twice last year. I don't even remember LeVert on the floor.
That's because Nick Stauskas was taking all the shots.
Good point. All right, what do we got next here? Predictions, I guess, for the season. Who do you think is cutting down the nets? Player of the Year, Coach of the Year? Any predictions do you have?
If I had to pick a team to cut down the nets, I can't go against Kentucky. But if I were in Vegas and I could bet Kentucky or the field, I'd take the field just because crazy things happen in March. So I guess I kind of give two answers there. So if I had to pick a team, I'm going to pick Kentucky because I don't see anyone beating them. But, again, March is crazy. My final four, let's go Kentucky, Arizona, North Carolina, and then I'll throw a little curveball. I'll throw Iowa State in there. As a curveball. I like Georges Niang, Naz Long. The way they play, if they're making shots, they're tough to beat. Fred Hoiberg, the mayor, he's a stud. I think he could get Iowa State to a Final Four this year.
Okay. Mine's pretty similar. I got Kentucky, Arizona, North Carolina. I'm going to throw in San Diego State. I kind of like what Fisher's got going on over there.
Signed a big extension today.
He did? Okay. Well, he's motivated then. So that's who I got here. In terms of Player of the Year, I think a lot of people are going to say Kaminsky. I'm going to go with Jahlil Okafor. I like what I saw against Michigan State, and I think he's just going to, Krzyzewski's going to ride him all year long, and he's going to get a lot of good matchups where he's going to get a lot of exposure. I just think, Kaminsky's going to be in an offense where they're kind of rotating who's going to be the scorer with him and Sam Decker. So I'm going to go with Okafor.
Okay, I'll take a flyer. My bold prediction. I'll say Rondé Hollis Jefferson from Arizona. He's kind of flying under the radar. I'm really, really big on his game. I don't know if he's going to put up the numbers for it, but that's who I'll say for Player of the Year. That's my bold prediction for the day.
Okay, I just like his name, Hollis.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And I don't want to be like everyone else and say Jahlil Okafor, Frank Kaminsky, or another big name from Kentucky or something like that.
Okay, no, I got you. All right, I guess we can move on to 30 for 30 recommendations, unless you have anything else to wrap up for college basketball.
No, that was good. I'm intrigued by this year. I can't wait to see Kentucky play another big team to see if I can feel better that Kansas lost by 32. Hopefully Kentucky beats Texas just as bad, or else the Big 12 10-in-a-row streak might be coming to an end this season.
All right, moving to 30 for 30 here. Now, I think I just watched actually today was the Bosworth one. That was pretty good. I think they try to paint him as too much of a sympathetic figure than he actually really is. I'm not sure if you checked that one out. I was a big fan of the Randy Moss Rand University one, and I am. I was a fan. I am actually wearing the Straight Cash shirt right now. I liked it. I thought I was
actually into that more though. The Straight Cash homie. I wish they would have had like a whole 5 to 10 minutes on that thing.
Yeah, they showed like one short clip at the very beginning intro, and they never really got into that. I thought they cut it a little too short. It was only an hour. Could have went longer.
I thought the same thing, and then Bomani Jones, who was a part of that, said they were thinking about making it 90 minutes or 2 hours. But they decided that let's keep it at 1 hour because we would rather have people wanting a part 2 than make it 2 hours and have people think it was too long. So I thought that was fair. That was a good move by them.
Always leave them wanting more, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Any other of the recent 30 for 30 stood out for you, or you want to
Rand University has definitely been my favorite. I liked the Bosworth one. I thought that was a really good story, and I had never really I knew of Brian Bosworth, obviously, but I didn't know that he was that much. I mean, wearing that one shirt to the Orange Bowl, that's a ballsy move. That's crazy. The day the series stopped, the one about the earthquake at the World Series, that one was pretty good. Not great, but good. And then the the shaving points one with Boston College. That one was pretty good too.
Oh, I forgot about that one. I think I
Yeah,
was pulled in because of the whole Goodfellas connection, but the
yeah,
show itself was pretty good, even without mentioning Henry Hill at all.
yeah. I agree. I mean, to me, all of them have been good. I would say the Boz one was a little above good, and then the Rand University to me was one of the best ones I've seen, in my opinion.
Well, speaking of really good 30 for 30s, we had this discussion, I think it might have been the last episode, but it was last year, so I probably forgot, of one that we really thought would be a really, really good 30 for 30, and you actually did an in-depth kind of piece on this, where it was the demise of the 7 seconds or less Phoenix Suns.
Mm-hmm.
And I have my notes on that, but I think you did a little more in-depth research. I guess tell the people why that would be a great 30 for 30.
First, I'll tell them I don't think it's ever going to happen because they didn't win a title. I mean, we saw the Bad Boys, the Pistons one, which is kind of a similar sort of thing, but they won titles, so that's why they got their 30 for 30. I just think it'd be interesting because Mike D'Antoni changed the way basketball was played in the NBA for that period of time. I mean, the Suns were winning like 20 games in a row, putting up – it wasn't abnormal for them to put up 120, 130 points in a game. I mean, they were putting up 80 points in a half, just literally trying to score the ball in 7 seconds or less. Steve Nash won back-to-back MVPs. And then they just had they had so many things didn't go their way. Joe Johnson literally breaks his face on a fast break. Amari Stoudemire gets suspended for a big playoff game in San Antonio. Then it almost fell apart. I mean, Raja Bell leaves, Boris Diaw leaves, and they bring in Shaq, and that works out, but they can't get over the hump once again. Joe Johnson leaves, and there were so many guys that could have contributed and did, but the Suns, they just couldn't ever catch the break and get over the hump. They always ran into San Antonio. They ran into Dallas. And there was just so many things that happened to them. Like I said, Joe Johnson getting hurt, that they couldn't get to the finals. They couldn't make it over the hump.
I think the craziest part about that whole SSL era was Mike D'Antoni was considered a genius back then. And
Yeah.
he did change the game and the way it's played. I mean, the Spurs run a lot of his system now. Nobody remembers that or even acknowledges that he was a visionary back then. And it's kind of crazy to think about. I think that would open a lot of eyes. Like he wasn't the guy that you saw in LA.
I agree, and I mean, I didn't think he was going to work in LA because Nash is older and he's hurt all the time.
Well, he didn't have the roster for it.
Exactly. He didn't have a healthy Nash. He didn't have Amari who could run the floor. He didn't have somebody to stretch it like Sean Marion and Joe Johnson did. He didn't have big guys that could stretch. I mean, Boris Diaw can knock down shots. He had a lockdown defender and Raja Bell. They just didn't have the guys for it.
And it's funny now, I'm looking at my notes of why I wanted this as a 30 for 30, and one of the knocks I gave to, I guess the list of knocks that I gave to that Robert Sarver, basically, he traded Joe Johnson as quick as the whole era began.
Yep.
They had the rights to Rajon Rondo, and they traded him.
Yep.
At the same time,
they didn't really need him. I mean, they had Nash.
and who knows what would have happened with Rondo if he would have developed like he is now.
Right.
Marcus Banks was seen as a viable backup to Nash into that run.
Yeah, I guess Rondo could have been Nash's backup for a while.
Yeah, Boris Diaw. I have this is the funny part here. I had Boris Diaw was given a $45 million 5-year extension. At the time, that seemed ridiculous, but now he might have got the same extension, I think. Or what did he get now? It's something.
I agree. I don't know if he's worth that much, but it doesn't seem as ridiculous now.
No. Back then, it was like, what are you thinking?
Right.
Lost in, I think he got traded to Charlotte for a while. He was kind of lost there for a while, but that's what Coach Pop can do for you, save your career.
No kidding.
I guess what else did you have on your list?
30 for 30s I'd like to see. I have 4 that could potentially be split up into 6 different ones. I would love to see a September 11th, just kind of how sports rallied around that. We just saw, it was almost like, it doesn't matter what team you're rooting for. We just wanted to see baseball. The playoffs were about to start. NFL was just beginning. College football had just started. We wanted sports to start again because that's kind of what everyone was rallying around. And I mean, I remember I lived in Arizona at the time, and the Diamondbacks played the Yankees in the World Series that year. And I just remember, I mean, George Bush was there throwing out the first pitch. It was such a big deal for sports to get back playing again and just for everyone to rally around what had happened, this terrible tragedy. And then sports were kind of like the glue that had held everyone together. I just think that would be really interesting to see. I would like to see a 30 for 30 on Pat Tillman. Just, you know, in my opinion, the most courageous act you could ever do. I mean, he's making millions of dollars playing in the NFL, and he decides to go and fight for his country and loses his life doing that. I think that'd be incredible. I don't think those will ever happen, though, just because ESPN probably isn't watching this and they won't listen to us on their our 30 for 30 suggestions. But the Pat Tillman one, to be honest, would probably be pretty depressing. The 9/11 one, to the same point, it could be made in a happy light, I guess. But yeah, I don't see those happening. Two others that I would really like to see, because one of these I'm a pretty big golf fan, is the 2000 U.S. Open. Tiger Woods did to the field what Kentucky did to Kansas last night. He won a golf tournament by 15 strokes, and it wasn't just any other golf tournament. It was arguably the biggest golf tournament of the year in the U.S. Open at Pebble Beach. He was the only player that finished under par, and he finished at 12 under par. To me, that's incredible. I would love to see a 30 for 30 kind of on Tiger Woods' early career and then have it fade into that, just how impressive that performance was and the Tiger Slam and everything like that. Then my final one is, this could either be 3 30 for 30s or it could be made into one. The 1984, the 1996, and the 2003 NBA draft, either morphed into one or just all individually, how those drafts developed and I think are not arguably the 3 best draft classes of all time. Possibly the 3 best players of all time. I'm not a Kobe fan, but he is good coming out of each one of those draft classes. So I would like to see those, just kind of how that draft class is built up and which one's the best. I would like to see opinions of big NBA guys and which ones they think is the best and just stuff like that.
It's a great list. I would definitely watch all of those, and I'm actually surprised they haven't done a 9/11 or a Pat Tillman one, considering it'd be perfect to roll out during Veterans Day or any other holiday like that.
Right. Did you see the new one that they're bringing out?
What's that?
They're having one. It's literally going to be called "I Hate Christian Laettner."
Whoa.
And it's going to be about Christian Laettner and just about how all these guys hated him while he was at Duke, and about the shot he made against Kentucky, obviously, and just why he was hated so much. And because he was a goofy white kid that was the best college basketball player in the country.
He was kind of like the Tim Tebow of college basketball back then.
I can see that.
Where I think if you hated him, you absolutely just could not hate him any more than you already did. If you loved him, it was like you were considered annoying. I think that's pretty much what he was. I wasn't that old back then to live that up. I think I was like 8, so I don't really know what all went on. But I think if he was around there in social media, he would get so many memes, and he'd get. Yeah. Well, that's actually a perfect segue to the ones I want to see. I never thought I'd use murder as a segue, but Chris Benoit, he's a former professional wrestler, considered one of the best to ever do it at his craft. He had a whole murder-suicide where they had to cancel some of the events they were doing, and the WWE kind of rushed to give him a tribute without getting all the facts of what happened, and they later just erased him from their entire history. It's kind of strange. He went down as one of the best of all time, and he's just deleted from the entire history now. And depending on who you ask, it's kind of the right thing to do and the wrong thing to do. And I think that would be interesting to see what went on with his mind. There's a lot of head trauma that went on with why he eventually murdered his own family. He was on a lot of drugs, and I think that plays into a lot of the stuff that's going on with the NFL and all the concussions there. And I think that would be riveting stuff. And my last one here, and a lot of it stems from my frustration with them doing 2 30 for 30s on the University of Miami. I enjoyed the first one. I don't see why they deserve 2 of them. I think they talked about everything they possibly could already.
No, they haven't.
What else could they talk about that they haven't?
Dude, Sean Taylor was not even in the first one. Like Clinton Portis, Sean Taylor, Willis McGahee, Uh, all those guys, basically 2000 on Kellen Winslow, Jeremy Shockey. They
You're
like weren't even
talking
playing
about
for.
one team.
Well, people are gonna watch it. That's why they're making it.
Well, I mean, I'm going to watch it. I'm not saying I'm not going to watch
I,
it.
I understand. I understand what you're saying.
But for me, I mean, there was a team with all of these stories that the Miami had going on almost simultaneously, and it was the 94 through 97 Cornhuskers dynasty. Maybe a little bias. I did go to the University of Nebraska, big Husker fan. But if you're a fan of controversy in sports, they had it. Human interest, they had it. They had Lawrence Phillips and all of his assault charges and the media backlash with Tom Osborne letting him play. Nebraska utilizing the whole Prop 48 rule where they can bring on players that didn't fully qualify, and that controversy with that. We revolutionized the strength and conditioning program. Boyd Epley basically was the father of modern strength and conditioning in college football. Brooke Berner's tragic plane crash. I know they did a special on BTN about that, but that was a pretty tragic story there. The dominance with going 60-3 over that period of time. Tom Osborne avenging his loss in the first Orange Bowl and winning it in 20 years later against the Miami Hurricanes. Matt Davison's crazy catch, the split against Michigan and all the politics that went on there. Ending the college careers of all-time greats like Ray Lewis and Peyton Manning. Those were their last games, was playing against Nebraska. I just think there's a lot of on-the-field, off-the-field controversies where I think it would be just as good as the U's 30 for 30s.
Yeah, no, I'm not even a Nebraska fan. I think that's definitely very intriguing because you know a lot more about Nebraska football than I do, obviously. But that definitely would be intriguing because they were so successful. Tom Osborne was such a good coach, but then there were so many things happening kind of off the field, outside the lines, so to speak, that would be really interesting to see.
Oh, yeah. Hopefully I can get in somebody's ear and bother them enough. I don't have enough pull, but hopefully I can figure out somebody that does. But I think that would be a great list. I would watch everything that we mentioned today in a 30 for 30. So hopefully somebody out there listens to our show. We have some great ideas.
Why don't you just make it? You could be the director.
I only do party videos and tailgate videos of people getting drunk at the College World Series. That's kind of my thing.
That's fair.
All right. So that's all I had for the show today. Any parting shots or last words or anything, Tate?
I got at least 2, maybe 3 questions for you. First question, who is Nebraska's football coach next year?
Oh, God. Unless Bo Pelini punches a ref, he's going to be the coach. I mean, even if he loses out, you're not going to fire a guy that's – I make fun of the whole 9 wins thing, but it's not a good PR move to fire a guy that wins as many games as he does, even though they're only against teams that are lesser talent than him or not ranked. You can't fire a guy, so I'm going to say Bo Pelini.
Okay, who's Florida's coach next year?
Whew. I was going to say Dan Mullen, but I think so, there was a report out there saying he's not even a candidate. So I'm probably going to say I'm going to go out left field. I'll say Steve Spurrier comes home.
Really?
Yep.
I think I'm going to say Todd Graham just because he's jumped around everywhere. It seems like Arizona State's been successful for the most part. So I'll go with him. But maybe, I don't know, I haven't been following this too much. Why isn't Jim Mora Jr. getting more attention about it?
That is kind of surprising, actually. I mean, he was a hot name at the beginning of the year when people predicted UCLA making the playoffs, but I haven't seen his name pop up as often as you would think. That's kind of a name we should keep track of here.
I agree. I thought I had another question for you, but I don't remember it now. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't remember.
Whatever. I guess the last question could be, are we going to do this more than once a year now?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Well, today was a start, so hopefully we can keep this moving, and we'll see what happens moving forward. But thanks for listening, everybody. We're going to try to do this more often than once a year.